What's up, everybody? We are here today to talk about the SEC tournament heading to Nashville, Tennessee, beginning today. If you're watching this as it comes out, tomorrow for me, as I sit here and record this on a Tuesday afternoon. The conference was as good as it's ever been, and maybe arguably the best conference we've ever seen from one conference in a season. You're talking about historic numbers, dominating the non-conference. Every team had great non-conference records heading into SEC tournament or SEC play beginning in January. You're looking at potentially, as we sit here right now, ahead of Selection Sunday, there are 13 projected teams of a possible 16 that are in the NCAA tournament. Possibility of 14 if Texas somehow can rally and make a run. I think the most likely number is 12. Now, whether that be in Arkansas or in Oklahoma or somebody else closer to the bubble drops out because of an upset loss in the SEC tournament, or maybe just the committee doesn't value their resume, is yet to be seen. But we are talking about an absolute historic conference this year that has had the number one team. They've had multiple for basically the last 2.5 months. You look at the ECB top 25, you look at the AP top 25, there's at least 3 of the 5 from the SEC all year long, and usually 5 or 6 in the top 10 from the SEC. There's been records of 8, 9 teams inside the top 25 this year at different points, usually no lower than 7. And it's just been an incredible run. We head to Nashville coming off of a year where Auburn dominated for large parts of the season, not only in conference play, but overall with a 27-4 mark. They only end up winning the league by 1 game due to back-to-back losses at the end of the year. Some can argue maybe they took their foot off the pedal. You could also argue, too, that everybody's schedule this year, night in and night out, you were playing a quad 1 opponent, essentially. And Auburn got beat by 2 very, very good teams at the end of the year. They win the conference by 1 game over Florida, who has the same overall record at 27-4, 14-4 in conference play. So Auburn only clinches by 1 game. Alabama, 24-7 overall record, 13-5 in the league. Tennessee got the 4 seed at 25-6 overall, 12-6 in the league. Texas A&M 5th at 11-7. You have 3 teams that tied with 10-8. Kentucky the 6 seed, Missouri the 7, and Ole Miss at 10-8. Those 3 teams to finish that low and not get near a double bye, they're very good teams. All 3, Kentucky, Missouri, Mississippi, have been inside the top 25 for a long time. Kentucky got inside the top 10, even almost cracked the top 5 for a while earlier in this year before injuries kind of derailed that and a couple bad losses. You're talking about really good teams. Georgia, right below the Ole Miss, Kentucky, Missouri trio at 8-10. You have 4 teams at 8-10 this year. Georgia, Mississippi State, Arkansas, who started 0-5 in the league and looked dead in the water, and they lost their star point guard, Boogie Flan, rallies to finish 8-10. Vanderbilt, who's an NCAA tournament team, 8-10. Now, on the surface, you look at those records and think, well, they're below 500. How good can they be? You're talking about wins, again, quad 1 opportunities every night in this league. So when you're able to get 8 wins in this league, you're not just playing bottom feeders. Vanderbilt had wins back-to-back over Tennessee and Kentucky, who were ranked inside the top 10 when it happened. Those are really great wins. Like, that is the best 8-10 team or 8-10 resume that you'll find in conference play most years. Like, that's really good when you finish 8-10, despite it not looking aesthetically pleasing, because it is 2 games under 500. But man, I'm telling you, everybody who watched this league this year, you will understand Vanderbilt's really talented. NCAA tournament team, 2 games under 500 should tell you all you need to know. Oklahoma finishes 6-12 in their first year in the league. They are a bubble team currently considered in 6-12. But that's how good that they had of a non-conference schedule. They won the battle for Atlantis, beating a really good team now in Louisville. They had good wins in the non-con, and they got a few wins here late that really helped them at 19-12, 6-12 in the league, and yet they're considered an NCAA tournament team. because the strength of the conference. It's as good as we've ever seen in college basketball. So what does that mean as we head into Nashville beginning today with first-round games down there in Nashville in the Bridgestone Arena? Let's take a look at the tournament here. Again, it's another one of these tournaments that doesn't necessarily blow up all the way because it would make the graphic look weird. So I will read them off to you, just in case you can't follow along there. First round action begins on Wednesday afternoon with the 16th seed South Carolina Gamecocks against the 9th seed Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, look, Arkansas has done themselves a world of favor in the last few weeks, getting back into NCAA tournament contention. We talked about the 0-5 conference start. We talked about how things were looking down. Then they rally. They get wins over Kentucky at Rupp. They beat Georgia to get their first conference win prior to that. They were able to sweep Texas. They've got good wins on the resume. Just beat Missouri, who was ranked inside the top 15 a few weeks ago at home in Bud Walton Arena. They beat Mississippi State to close the regular season out, another NCAA tournament team. They are currently projected in as depending on who you look at, is either a play-in game in Dayton or a solid on the 11th seed. Arkansas did lose no less than 14 days ago, as of this recording, to South Carolina on the road that knocked them temporarily out of the NCAA tournament contention before they rallied and got this win against Mississippi State that kind of vaulted them. They've actually got a win at Vanderbilt, and they followed up with the Mississippi State win, which vaulted them back in. I think this is clearly important for Arkansas. I know there will be some that disagree, but if they lose again, on the surface, South Carolina dead last in the league. It is still a quad 2 based upon South Carolina's net. Again, the strength of the league is ridiculous. So if Arkansas loses an opening game in the SEC tournament today, it's just a quad 2 loss, but you're putting yourself in a real bad spot because you are on the bubble, and you put yourself in a spot where if, as we talk about, a Texas goes on a run, now it's you against Texas. Despite you sweeping, it could be the lasting image of what Texas can do, especially if they were to knock off some highly ranked teams, those Q1A victories that's possible in this league tournament. Not only Texas, you're looking at Indiana is also in that bubble with you, Xavier, Ohio State. You're leaving a lot for chance if you don't get this first one. Not only that, you get South Carolina, you'll get a rematch with Ole Miss, who you played very close in this year and should have won. You beat Ole Miss, who's a solid NCAA tournament team, that probably a top 7 seed line right now. That's another Q1 that adds to your resume. Not only is it solid or solidify you as an NCAA tournament team, but now you're solidly in, and you probably bump up a line to 10, maybe as high as a 9. So there's a lot of implications in this first game. And John Calipari, as we know, the last couple years with Kentucky, they've not been winning a whole lot in Nashville. We will see how the importance level he puts on this game. I think they need to go win this game. It would be nice convincingly, but just win. Arkansas has to win. Do not leave any stone unturned. Go beat South Carolina. Set you up with a rematch against Ole Miss, and then you're gravy. I do think the Razorbacks get it done. They're playing some of their best basketball right now. It will be curious to see if Adu Thero's back. I've heard rumors of Boogie Flan may even be coming back after thought he was done for the year. We will see. I think Arkansas needs to win. They're the better team. Let's see if they get the revenge on the Gamecocks. But if they lost and you go home early in the first game of the SEC tournament, even though it's quad 2, I think you're playing with fire doing that. The second game today will be Texas against Vanderbilt. Interesting matchup because Texas is living on the bubble. They're on the outside looking in. They've got a superstar freshman in Trey Johnson that can absolutely carry them. They've got a complimentary piece in Tremont Mark. Arthur Kaluma, when he's good, can be a valuable piece as well. I love Vanderbilt's team. I think Vanderbilt could be a dark horse in this whole SEC tournament because the way they play offense. They spread it out, 5 out. They shoot the ball well. They force a lot of turnovers. Like if you're not taking care of the basketball, they will turn you over left and right. Texas's back is against the wall. They know they have to go win a couple games to put themselves in a spot to maybe feel good on Selection Sunday. But with that being said, I think Vanderbilt's there home in Nashville. They turn the ball over or turn the other teams over. They've got dudes, and it's a style that's very tricky to play against if you're not ready. I'm curious how Texas tries to guard Tyler Nickel, 6'7" transfer, comes over from Virginia Tech, a sniper from beyond the three-point line. I think Vanderbilt ends Texas's dreams, and I think Vanderbilt moves on. We've got LSU and Mississippi State in the first game of the night session today in Nashville. Look, LSU's not had the season that they wanted, clearly. Damian Collins, good rim protector, athletic kind of player, but they're not the same type of talent as everybody else in the league. Mississippi State is so Jekyll and Hyde this year because at their peak, you're talking about a team with Josh Hubbard and Claudell Harris and some of the other players they have that can really put pressure. They're tough, they're physical, and they've got dudes who can score the ball. But they've also had downturns where it seems like a lot of big games they've been hyped up and a lot of top 25 showdowns. They seem to play at a certain level, but never good enough to get over the hump against some of the bigger name teams in the league this year. They need to show up. I think they handle business against LSU. Josh Hubbard is a matchup nightmare because you're talking about a 5'10" guard that springs into his shot like nobody you've ever seen, gets it off, can make tough, difficult shots. They've added Claudell Harris that can complement him. This is a good team. Chris Jans can really coach, but they need a win just for momentum's sake, not for NCAA tournament life, but for momentum. I think they get it against LSU. Final game. This is an intriguing one of the nightcapper tonight on Wednesday night. Oklahoma and Georgia. Georgia has been playing out of their mind, some of their best basketball here lately. They've got really good wins. Florida, they've got here recently in the last couple of weeks, considering how great Florida has been. That is a really good win. That was probably the win that sealed the NCAA tournament bid for the Georgia Bulldogs, who had previously been on the outside looking in. They won 20 games this year. Silas Demery has been really good from his freshman to sophomore jump. Ethan Newell as a freshman is considered one of the best freshmen in the country that honestly not a lot of people are discussing. When you talk freshmen, you're talking Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple, other talented freshmen. Asa Newell's name doesn't get mentioned, but he's the highest rated recruit the Georgia Bulldogs have ever had, and he's been showing out. Georgia ended the season on a 4-game win streak with wins against Florida, Texas, South Carolina, and Vandy. They play an Oklahoma team who big win finally at the end of the regular season. They were able to reel off 2 against Missouri and Texas to put them on the right side of things right now, according to bracketologists. But they definitely need to try to get one more to feel secure. Georgia's pretty safely in if you talk to most bracketologists, but Oklahoma, despite being on the right side of the bubble now, the kind of the same thing that we talked about with Arkansas. You don't want to leave anything for a chance. They need to go get one. Jeremiah Fears, a freshman, another talented freshman, is a microwave scorer, can go get 25 on any given night. He has been unreal this year. But I think at the end of the day, Georgia grinds one out. They will slow the game down. Demery, Blue Kane, Asa Newell, they make plays. I don't think Oklahoma has anybody that can keep Asa Newell off the backboard. Expect a double-double from the big-time freshman. And I've got the Georgia Bulldogs moving on to Thursday night. Let's talk about Thursday night in the second round. We have Arkansas Ole Miss. I talked about it with the rematch. Ole Miss and Chris Beard, really physical team, really talented team, has scoring lapses at times. You wonder about their capacity to go on big scoring runs. Now, when they are hot, they are hot. They're one of those teams that can go scoreless for 3 minutes and then have a 3 or 4 minute stretch where they cannot miss. 21-10 on the year, got big wins against Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama on the road. They've beaten Georgia. They've beaten Arkansas. They beat a great Louisville team this year. They've beaten a red-hot BYU team. This is a really good Mississippi team. Second in turnover percentage on offense, meaning they do not turn the ball over themselves a whole lot. But I like to ride momentum. At the end of the year, Ole Miss ended the season losing 4 of their final 6 games. They did have that big win against Tennessee, but losses to Mississippi State, Vandy, Florida, and Auburn. Look, not bad losses, 4 tournament teams, but I trust momentum. Arkansas feels like a team who has better momentum right now. Arkansas coming off of a 93-point performance. They're not known necessarily for their scoring prowess, but Arkansas plays really good defense. They have better athletes than Ole Miss does. I actually favor, if they're motivated, we know Cal does not, and he's been clear about this already. Yet again, he does not like these conference tournaments. But I think Arkansas gets the job done against Ole Miss, sets up a quarterfinal matchup. I've got Vandy against Texas A&M. Again, Vandy's style could be really tricky for Texas A&M, but A&M, one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. They've got great players, Wade Taylor, Pharrell Payne on the interior. They've got dudes. Again, can Vandy flip the quick turnaround from an athletic Texas team to play a grinded out, stuck in the mud type of game against Texas A&M? Because that's how A&M games go. They grind you down to a pulp. They stick you in the mud, a lot of fouls, a lot of rebounds. It's just so physical. I've got A&M moving on, but I do think there's a world where Vandy spreads them out because A&M's had some trouble with teams like that this year. Alabama, high-tempo, spread-out offense. Florida, Kentucky beat them in Rupp Arena playing that way. Vanderbilt fits that mold. I think Vandy can give them a lot of issues, but I've got A&M moving on. We've got Mississippi State against Missouri. Another intriguing matchup of styles where Missouri fits that mold similar to what we talked about with Florida, Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Vandy. Spread out, let's shoot, let's go fast. Tamar Bates can really shoot. He's played at an all-conference level this year. Missouri, one of the best stories in the league this year after going winless, 0-18 last year in the league, to bounce back and to finish in the top 6 seeding here. Then they're playing a Mississippi State team that, again, really good guards, really tough, really physical. I think if Mississippi State can slow the game down, limit guys like Caleb Grill, who is an absolute sniper once he gets hot from that three-point line. Mark Mitchell has been such a revelation for Missouri. You talk about a dude at Duke that always had the talent, but he really couldn't shoot. Now he's stepping out, hitting 2 or 3 threes a game if given the opportunity and carrying the load. You talking about Tony Perkins coming from Iowa, a two-way scorer, defender. I like Missouri to get the pace up to where Mississippi State's not comfortable with. I think Missouri can put a lot of numbers up against Mississippi State, and I've got the Missouri Tigers moving on to quarterfinal Friday. Let's talk about the last game on Thursday evening in the second round. I've got Georgia, Kentucky. Georgia did beat the Cats in their one and only matchup in Stegman Coliseum back in the beginning part of January. Kentucky was coming off of a conference opening win against Florida, go down to Athens and got bullied for a while, for pretty much majority of the game until a late comeback, saw it get close. Silas Demery, I've talked all about Asa Newell. I've talked about Blue Kane. I do think there's a world where Georgia could sweep Kentucky. I really do, but that's dependent because the game in Athens, Georgia made shots that they don't normally make from the three-point line, and they got a ton of foul calls and going to the free throw line. Tournament games are completely different. If Kentucky, who has shown, by the way, in that first game too, Kentucky was ranked like 70th defensively. It eventually climbed shortly after to 112. Now they're down into the top 55. They've been the 8th best defense in college, the 18th best defense in college basketball, I think it was, according to Bart Torvik, in the last month of the season. They've been a top 20 defense, one of the top 10 teams in the country in the last month. They figured it out. They've gotten as healthy as they're going to be. They know their roster. Big Blue Nation's going to turn up. Like it's Nashville is mostly full of Kentucky fans, no matter who's playing, especially when the Cats are timed to play at 9:30 at night on Thursday. I've got Kentucky needing just to get that monkey off their back, an SEC win. It's been a while. An SEC tournament win, in Nashville. It's been a while. I think they beat Georgia and get some revenge. Let's go to quarterfinal Friday here, which sets up the number 1 seed, Auburn against Arkansas. I think this is where Arkansas just maybe motivation's out, maybe just tired legs, whatever. Auburn puts it on Arkansas. I think Arkansas keep it close. DJ Wagner, because they did keep it close in the first meeting, but Auburn's too much. I think the Tigers move on. Then you've got the 4 seed Tennessee playing against Texas A&M in a interesting 4-5 matchup here. Very similar styles. This may be the first of 60 wins. You're talking about Tennessee, great defensively, can match physicality with A&M. It's all dependent, in my opinion, if Zakai Ziegler can make plays as far as scoring goes, and if Chaz Lanier gets hot. If Lanier gets hot, Tennessee wins this game. If he has one of these games where he's had throughout the league play where he's just shots aren't falling, Tennessee can really go on scoring droughts. similar to A&M in a lot of ways. A&M with Wade Taylor, you trust them. I've got Texas A&M beating Tennessee based solely on both these teams are so identical. A&M is the slightly better offensive rebounding team, and they've got Wade Taylor, who I know will go make a play if need be there in the final seconds of the game. Give me A&M to move on to play Auburn. Bottom half of the bracket in the quarterfinals. What a matchup this will be. Missouri, Florida in the 7-2 matchup. Florida is one of my national championship contenders. I think this team has been awesome. They've got a trio of guards as good as anybody in America. They play a high tempo, which Missouri will want to play a high tempo, but sometimes you play teams who just do it better than you, and Florida is absolutely one of those teams in college basketball who do it better than just about anybody in the country. I know in Ken Palm it says 65th, but that's still a really high tempo. They shoot the ball well. They've got playmakers, Walter Clayton Jr., Elijah Martin, Will Richard. They've got better, not only the guards, they've got better role players. Alex Condon has been phenomenal as an offensive rebounder, screener, steps out and hit the occasional three, can take his, if he's getting a mismatch, he can take his guy off the bounce if it's a slower footed big man. Thomas Huff, the same thing. I love this Florida team. I think they put a hurting on Missouri, especially if Mizzou has to play the day before. Give me the Gators big. Bottom game of the last game of the quarterfinal, Kentucky, Alabama. They've played 2 games so far, been really entertaining games. Alabama, it was tied at 81 in the first matchup in Rupp Arena. Kentucky had went on a run to tie it. Lamont Butler makes a silly turnover. It sparks a 9-0 run that basically closes the show in the final 2.5 minutes. Bama wins. Very tight ball game. A couple of weeks ago, Kentucky goes down to Tuscaloosa. Another really tight ball game. No Lamont Butler, no Jackson Robinson. Plays them tough. Alabama's just a better team. I think fully healthy Lamont Butler could make this really interesting. I do see a world with Big Blue Nation rocking with them. I see a world where Kentucky can win this game, but it's depending on if they can close out rebounds and if they can limit Alabama from getting to the free throw line, in particular Mark Sears, because that's what killed them in the matchup against Tuscaloosa. Whoever wins the three-point line in this matchup wins this game, and I fully believe that. Three-point line and turnover battle. I think you have to take Alabama because they're deeper, but I would not be surprised if Kentucky in a neutral setting with Big Blue Nation, might as well say it's a home game in a way for Kentucky. I think Alabama wins, but I think we're in for another really good ball game. Let's start rounding this out. Semifinals, man. What a semifinal game. We've got Auburn and Texas A&M. A&M, again, team, Buzz Williams team, tough physical, offensive rebound and all that, but I think Auburn just too much. They've been so great all year long. I think they're too much for A&M. I do think A&M will keep it close. Wade Taylor can make some crazy shots and probably frustrate Auburn. Auburn has had a tendency here lately, and they've gotten bit for it the last couple games in the regular season. Playing with their food a little too long. You can't let A&M hang around because they've got dudes who can come back and close the show on you. I think Auburn wins this game. I think it's another one where it's defensive, it's grinded out, ugly, but I think Auburn eventually closes the show, covers 8.5. I don't know if that's going to be the line, but I think they'll cover 8.5, move to championship Sunday. Bottom one, man, Florida, Alabama. These two teams just played less than 2 weeks ago. Florida went down to Alabama, Tuscaloosa on a Tuesday night and pulls out a victory that went back and forth, had numerous lead changes. These two teams are so similar. They fit the mold, just like we've talked about with – there's like so many teams that are similar in a lot of ways with the high tempo, shooting the three, crazy guard play, just elite offensive basketball. And these two are right at the top of that list. Number one tempo team in the conference and in the nation, in the conference, Alabama. Florida plays a high tempo, great guard play, great role players stepping up. I think it's simple, similar to Kentucky, Alabama, who makes shots, who takes care of the basketball. The one caveat I throw in, Florida is a better offensive rebound percentage team. They will get second, third opportunities, which ultimately help them beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa a few weeks ago. I think that's the same thing. I think that it gets down late. It's tie ball game or within one possession, one way or another. Florida continues to get offensive rebounds to set up an Elijah Martin and Walter Clayton to make big shots. Give me the Gators moving to championship Sunday, where we get the 1 seed Auburn against the 2 seed Florida Gators. And I think Florida wins. There's something special about this Gator team. They can beat Auburn. They've done it in the last month, going to Auburn and winning, similar to what they did just recently going to Alabama. They've already proven they actually went down to Auburn and put an ass whooping on the Auburn Tigers. I've got Florida. I love the guards. I love the role players. We haven't even talked about Ruben Chinule, big dude inside that can hold a physical presence, that can do his best to negate Janai Broom. Give me the Gators, SEC champs in Nashville. It all begins today if you're watching this on Wednesday when this drops. For me tomorrow, as I'm recording this on Tuesday. This should be fun. The best conference basketball that we've seen all year long. It should be for an exciting, probably the best SEC or best conference tournament we will see this week because of the action of so many quad one games, so many top 25, top 10, top 5 matchups potential. A lot of fun about to head our way in Nashville, but I've got the Gators to win the championship.